Join me as we learn Chitas together for the fourth day of Parshas Vayeira, Wednesday Parshas Vayeira, chapter 19, verse 21. Yesterday we discussed as Lot was being saved from Sodom, and he wanted to go to a city which was close, which we explained, either close, meaning that it was a new city, so therefore not too many sins, and over here the angels respond to Lot. Vayomer elav. And the angels replied to him, Hine nasasi fanecha. In this matter, we have shown to you a favor. Gam l'davar zeh, also for this matter. Levilti hafchi esayir. They will not overturn the town. Asher dibarta, that you spoke of. Not only have we saved you, but also we're not going to overturn the town that you requested. Rashi, verse 21. Gam l'davar azeh, meaning this as well. Loi dayach shata nitzel, not only have you been saved, Ayalaf kol year, but even this whole city of Tsar, Atzil beglalecha, will be saved because of you. Hafchi, overturn, meaning hoifech ani, I will overturn. And Rashi explains the word hafchi. Whenever there's a yud, it comes to tell you I. Kemoi ad ba'i, until I will come. Achrei, after I see midei dabri ba'i, and so on. That all these words, therefore he says levilti hafchi, that I will not overturn. Verse 22. Ma'ir himoli chama, but hurry, escape there. Kiloi uchalas isdavar, because I cannot do anything ad bayach Hasham until you arrive there. Al Kain, for that reason, Kara Shema Shema Ir Tzayar, they call the name of the city Tzoar. There was Bela, and therefore now it was called Tzoar from then on. Rashi, Kiloi Ucha Lasis, verse 22, meaning, I don't have permission to overturn the cities of Sodom and Amorah until you reach the place of Sodom. This was actually a punishment of the angels. Al Sha'amru, because they said before in verse 13, Ki mashchisimanu anachnu, that we are the ones that are destroying the city of Sodom. V'tolu adavar ba'atzman, and they depended the action on their own, not saying that it was God. Lafichach now shalizozu mimkeimam ache huskiku v'leimer shein adavar b'shusan. In order to correct what they said in the past, they had to now say, we cannot do anything unless God tells us, and we have to wait for God to allow us to overturn the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and that can only be done once you go to your city. Kiloi uchal. In Lashon Yachid, this is in a singular terminology. From here you see, and Rashi reiterates this again, that it wasn't two angels that were destroying the people of Sodom. One was destroying the place of Sodom, and one was saving. And Rashi reiterates what he mentioned earlier, because two angels cannot do, because two angels were not sent for one job. Each angel, just like we mentioned earlier, one angel doesn't do two jobs. Two angels are not given one job. Al kain kara shema yer tzayar. Therefore, it's called, the name is Tzar, al shem v'hi mitzar, because we mentioned earlier that it was close, it was small, and for that reason it was called the name Tzar. Verse 23. Hashemesh yatza la'aretz, the sun had already risen over the earth, v'loid ba tzayara, and Lot reached Tzar. Verse 24. Hashem himtir al Sodom, and God over here now made it pour down on Sodom, v'al Amorah, and on Amorah, gofris v'eish, sulfur and rain and fire rain, me'es Hashem, from God, min hashamayim, from the heaven, from the sky. Rashi, verse 24, v'Hashem himtir, any time that it says v'Hashem, it means and Hashem. Who's and? There must be somebody else included. And therefore it comes to tell us who v'estinai him and the heavenly tribunal. Himtir al Sodom, made it rain down on Sodom. What is this telling us? When did it happen? Ba'alis hashachar, at dawn. As it says, as the morning comes up, it is the time when the moon and the sun are standing together in the sky. Why specifically at that time? Because there were certain people that used to serve the sun as they were pagans and they served idolatry. V'mehem l'levana, and some of them they used to serve the moon. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so God said, Im paramehem, if I'm going to punish them by Yom during the day, Yuev the Levana Imrim, then the people that serve the moon will say, Elohaya. Then the people that serve the moon will say, if it would have been at night, when the moon is in charge, we never would have gotten destroyed. And if it would happen, if the punishment will happen at night, that the people that serve the sun would say, if it would happen during the day, when the sun is in charge, we wouldn't have been destroyed. Therefore, the Torah puts the words in. Ukemoi hashachar Allah, as the morning star comes up. V'nifra mehem, and therefore God punished them. B'shah shachama v'lavana meishlim, at the time when the sun and the moon are both there at the same time. So the people of the sun, those that serve the sun cannot blame it on the moon. Those that serve the moon cannot blame it on the sun. And both of them see that their idolatries are worthless. Himtir, Gofris veish, God made it rain sulfur and fiery rain. Bitchila, first it was mata, regular rain. And then afterwards, Nasa Gofris, it became sulfur and fiery rain, Gofris Veish. Me'es Hashem, from God, doesn't it already say God made it rain? Why does he have to say again from God? This is the usual way how the verse tries to allude and to teach us where it's all coming from. Kamei, like we find it in other places as well, where he says, listen up, Nashei Melech, v'layamar Nasha, he doesn't say my wives. It always refers to the person who it's talking to. V'chein amar David, so too David says, Kichui machem es avdi adonechem, take with you the servant of your master. And he doesn't say from my servants. It's always referring like in third person. So too we see by in the Megillah's Esther, Achashverosh says, B'Shem HaMelech v'layamar b'Shmi, doesn't say sign it in my name. He's assigned in the name of Achashverosh, talking about himself in third person. Afkan Omar. So too, when God says God will make it rain down, where is it coming from? Es Hashem, from God, and it doesn't say v'layamar mi itay, from him. Mina shamayim, from heaven. Why does the Torah have to tell us that it's coming from the sky? This is because God says, Kibam yodin amin, that within them, God judges the nations, meaning that the skies are used by God to be able to judge the nations, whether for good or for bad. When God comes to punish and to train or to warn the creations, he brings them fire from heaven, like it did this time. And also so too when it comes to good, that he brings down the manna, it also came in Hashemayim from heaven. As it says in the verse, so the heaven is the vehicle that God uses, the conduit that God utilizes to be able to either bring good, which is like the manna, or bring punishment like the sulfur and fire which came down on these people. Verse 25. And God overturned these four cities, the Eis Kol HaKikar, and the entire plain, V'skol Yeshvei Arim, and all the people that were living in those cities, V'tzemach HaAdam, and all the vegetation from the ground. Verse 25, Rashi, V'yafech Arim, Arbaiton, all four cities were destroyed at once, Sodom, Amorah, Admah, and Tzvayim. Yeshevas Besela, they were all there, sitting in the mountain, Echad, on one place, V'afachan, and he turned them over, Milmaila Lamata, upside down. Shenemar b'chalomi shalach yadi, as it says that God sent his hand in the stone. Verse 26, Vatabit ishtei ma'acharav, and Lot's wife turned around and looked behind him at the destruction that was going on, contrary to what they were told not to look around. Vatihinitzev melech, and she became a pillar of salt. Why a pillar of salt? So let's see what happened here. Rashi 26. Vatabit ishtei ma'acharav, she turned around behind Lot, because Lot was going back. He was the one in the last in the row, and she looked behind him. Why did she turn into a pillar of salt? Because since she sinned with salt, so therefore she was punished with salt as well. Omar La, because when Lot told her, why don't you give some salt to the guest? Tanimat melech l'ercham, give some salt to these guests. Omar La, she said to him, also this terrible custom of helping and giving and being there for your guest, you're also going to bring in this city? Absolutely not. And because she was so angry and she wasn't interested in serving her guest salt, she was punished and became a pillar of salt. Vayashkim Avram ba'boiker, and Avram got up in the morning, el hamokim asher omat sham, to that place that where he was standing there before God, asking God on behalf of the people of Sodom and Amorah, asher omat sham espnei Hashem, where we stood there before God. Verse 27, verse 28, Vayashkev al pnei Sodom v'Amorah, and he gazed upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, v'al pnei kol eretz hakikar, and over the whole area of the plain. Vayeira, and he saw v'hine ala kiter haaretz, and he sees a column of smoke rising from the earth. Kekiter hakifshan, like the column of the smoke of a lime kiln. Over here, it tells us as Avram sees the destruction of Sodom and Amorah. Verse 28, Rashi. Kitar, the word kitar is timur shel ashan, a pillar of smoke. Hakivshan, what does it mean, the furnace? What kind of furnace? It's referring to a kiln where they would then make cement and make bricks. And anytime it uses the terminology kivshan, it's referring to such a type of oven and stove. Verse 29. And it was when God destroyed the cities of the plain. And he sent and he remembered Avram. Because he remembered Avram, he sent Lot and saved them from this destruction. When he overturned the towns that Lot was settled in. Rashi Vayiskar Lekimis Avram. Why all of a sudden does God remember Avram? And because of that, Lot is saved. Niska, to remember, and remember that when Abraham and Sarah went down to Egypt, and Avram said that Sarah is my sister, or that Avram is her brother, Lot was there, and Lot could have spilled the beans and said that they're really not brother and sister. And he heard what Avram said in Mitzrayim about Sarah, and he did not say anything because he was concerned about him. So too, God was concerned and therefore saved him and did not allow him to be part of the overturned cities. Verse 30. Now we continue on, going back to what happened with Lot. Lot Mitzayar, and Lot went up from Tzoar. Vayeshev Bahar, and he settled in the mountain. And two of his daughters were with him. Ki yari l'sheves b'Tzayar, they were afraid to remain in Tzayar. Vayeshev B'Ma'ara, so they stayed in the cave. Who Ushtei v'Nesav, him and his two daughters. Why were they afraid to stay in Tzayar? So Rashi tells us, verse 30. Ki yari l'sheves b'Tzayar. It was very close to Sodom, and they weren't sure if they distanced themselves enough. Who knows what's going to happen? Now that the two daughters were the only ones remaining, they thought everybody was destroyed. So therefore, the older one said to the younger one, Avinu Zaken, our father is old. V'ish ein ba'aretz, and there's no man in the world. Love aleinu kederech ha'aretz, for us to marry like everybody else. 31, Rashi, what does it mean? Avinu Zaken, our father is old, and if we don't utilize this opportunity, if not now, when? Maybe he'll die, or he won't have the ability to give birth. The ish ein ba'aretz, why was there no men for them to marry? They thought that this was another flood and the entire universe was destroyed, and they were the only ones to be saved. Just like by the generation of the flood that just happened over just about a little bit over 50 years ago. Therefore, Vatashkena. Therefore, we come to the next verse. Because of this, come, let's give our father wine to drink. We'll be intimate with him, and we'll be able to bring and from our father children, produce from our father offsprings. Verse 33. Fatashkenas avian yayin balayla. And they gave their father to drink wine that night. Gave their father to drink wine that night. Who that night? Vatave abchira. And the elder one came. Vatishka vesavia. And she was intimate with her father. V'lo b'shichva v'kuma. And he did not know when she lied down with him or when she got up with him. When she arose or when she lied down. Rashi. Vatashkena. Where did they get wine from? They're in a cave. There's nothing there. Yayin is damalim b'mehera. By divine providence, wine came in the cave. L'haitzimem shtei umayis, because this was destined that these two nations will come from them. Vatishka vesavia, and she laid with her father. Ubetzeira ksiv, and by the younger one it says Vatishkav imoy, and she laid with him. Tzeira, the younger one, lefisha loy pascha biznus. Over here, the Torah tells us that because the younger one was not the one who came up with the idea of having this immodest behavior on her own, it was her sister that taught her to do it. The Torah was kind and was careful and hid the act that she has done and doesn't say it explicitly. But the first one who came up with the idea with this immoral behavior, therefore the Torah says it clearly what she did. Uvekuma, and when she arose, shalabchira nakod. It says uvekuma. If you look at the word uvekuma, there's a dot on the word uvekuma, telling us that when the older one got up, v'loimar, saying shebekuma yada, that when he got up, when she got up, he actually knew what happened. Fa'afal became, but still in all, like nishmar leil sheni malishtes, he was not careful not to drink again the second night. Omer Rab Levi, because of this, Rab Levi says, Kol misha hu lot, any person who is promiscuous, achar bulmus, shalaroyas, that means he is really crazed over being involved in inappropriate behaviors. Eventually he gets to eat of his own flesh, meaning that incest then comes upon him as well. As we see with Lot, that he wasn't careful with being with what happened to him, and because of that, he was intimate with his daughters. The interesting thing over here, why does it say Uvekuma? The Zohar explains Uvekuma, and when she got up, she did not realize that Uvekuma, this will be something great coming from this child, that ultimately Ruth will come from this child. Ruth will then give birth to King David and to King Mashiach. And as the Kabbalah explains, that in order for Mashiach to come, it was such a great soul, it had to come from a very extraordinary way, even in a prohibited way, in order for this great soul to come into the world. Verse 34. Vahimi mocharas, and it was the next day. And the older one said to the younger one, Hein shachafti yomesh, last night I was who I laid with our father. Nashkenu yayin gamalayla, we're going to give him to drink wine also tonight. And you go and lie with him. And will produce from our father offsprings. Verse 35. And they gave him to drink wine also that night. As Avia and Yoyin, their father, wine. And the younger one got up, and she laid with him, and he did not know, when he lied down with her, and when he arisen from her. Verse 36. And the two daughters of Lot conceived and became pregnant from their father. Vatarena, says Rashi, even though they were both guilty in this case, the older one was the instigator, the younger one just followed her lead, but still in all, how is it possible that they became pregnant from only being once intimate with their father? If it says in the Talmud, we know that it says, Afal Pi, that even though that generally a woman cannot become pregnant from the first time being intimate. Elu sholta ba'atzman. However, these had specific control and they worked very hard. And they worked hard that they brought their hymen on the outside, and because of this, through a certain tactic, they were able to become pregnant from the first time being intimate with their father. Verse 37. And the older one gave birth to a son. And she gave him the name Moav. Hu Avi Moav, he is the father, the ancestor of the people of Moav, ad hayoim, until this present day. Moav, verse 37, Zu shalai hesitznua, this older woman, this older daughter, who was not modest, Pirsha Shem Avia, she clearly had no problem saying that this child came from her father. And she said this clearly in his name. But the younger daughter across used a more clean language. Ben Ami, meaning it's from the nation. Therefore, Kibla Scharbi Maisha, because she was more modest and careful of how she spoke, and she wasn't so proud of this ancestral type of behavior, she received reward in the time of Moshe, as it says, that it says about the children of Amin, Al Tiskabram, do not begin a war, do not frighten them. Klal there were two nations that the Jewish people confronted while they were in the desert. The children of Ammon, they were not even allowed to frighten, let alone not go to war with. The people of Moab, God told them, you can frighten them, you can pain them, you can make them suffer, but you cannot start a war with them. Torah reading continues. And the younger one also gave birth to a son. And she called him the son of my nation. He is the ancestor of the people of Ammon ad hayoim, until this present day. Now the Torah goes back to tell us where Avram is up to at this point. Chapter 20, verse 1. After the cities were destroyed, travelers had no reason to hang around that area anymore. So Avram moved locations for better business. Avram arza Negev, and Avram journeyed from there to the Negev. Vayeshev ben Kadesh ben Shur vayogar begror, and he settled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned, and finally in the city of Gror. Avram, Rashi explains, why did Avram travel from there? When he saw that all the cities were destroyed, and people no longer were traveling, so therefore his business was down. He didn't have anybody coming to his hotel. There were no guests. He traveled someplace else. Another reason why Avram moved away, because to get further away from Lot. As you know, this happened previously, that Avram moved away from Lot. When everybody heard that Lot had incest with his daughters, which according to some was even against the Noahide laws, so therefore this became a bad name for Lot, and you know Lot and Avram looked alike, so therefore Avram moved away, that he didn't want to be next to Lot. Verse 2. Avram said to Sarah's wife, you are my sister. And the king of Gror, Avimelech, sent messengers, and they took Sarah. This is the same routine that happened when they went to Egypt, where Avram says to Sarah that she is my sister. I have an interesting thing. When it came to Egypt, Avram asked Sarah permission. Over here, he did not. Verse 2, Rashi. Over here, he did not take any permission from Sarah. Ella al korcha shalei b'tevasa. Over here, it was by force and against her will. Why? He was concerned that she might not agree, because she was already taken to Pharaoh's home, and she was taken away. So she was concerned that this may affect her here as well. Al Sarah Ishtay. What does this mean? Simply, Al Sarah Ishtay, about Sarah, his wife. So do we find El Halekach Arin ve'el Chamel sheshneim b'loshin al. We find in other places where the word El means al, about. Verse 3. Vayavei Avimelech. Vayavei Elikim el Avimelech. And God appeared to Avimelech. B'chaloi malayla, in a dream at night. Vayomer, and he told him, Hin chames, you're going to die. Why? Ala isha asher lakachta, because the woman that you took, v'hi be'ulas bal, as she is a married woman. Verse 4. Vavimelech lekoravela. Avimelech had not come near her. Vayoimar. Adoinoi hagoy kam tzadik tarik. And he said, will you kill a righteous with a master? Will you kill the righteous an innocent person, an innocent nation? Rashi, 4. Leikoravela, he did not come close to her. That wasn't on his own will. Hamalach manoi, the angel did not allow him to come close to her. Kameshanomar, as it says later on, I did not give you the ability to come close to her. Hagoy gam tzadik tari. Goy over here usually means a nation. Af im hu tzadik targenu. Are you going to kill a person even though they might be righteous? Shemakein darka chalabit asum ischinam. Is this your style to kill the nations for no reason? That's what people will say. That's why you killed the generation of the flood and the generation of that flood, those that built the tower. I will also say, Sharaktem, that you killed those nations, meaning Avimelech is countering and saying, if you're going to kill me here for no reason, then I'm going to say that also the people of the flood, the people of the building of the tower, why were they killed? For no reason as well. Verse 5. Halayhu Hamarli did not say to me, didn't he say to me, Achaisi, she's my sister. And she also said, he's my brother. The Sam Levavi, I did so with an innocent heart, Munikayin Kapai, and with a blameless hand, Asisi Zais, I did this. I was completely innocent. I did not know that they were related, that they were married. Rashi, verse 5, Gamhi, also her, L'Rabbi Savadim Ugmalim V'Chamarim Shalom as Kulum Sha'alti V'Amr Li'Achiu. I asked all the people. I asked the donkeys. I asked the people that were leading the donkeys, the wagon drivers, the servants. I asked them, who are these people? And they told me, the brother and sister. Besam Levavi, Shalei Dimisi. I did not have any intention lachatoi to sin and take a married woman. Ubenika and Kapai. What does it mean with a blameless hand? I am clean from any sin because bottom line, I did not touch her. So therefore, I don't deserve to be hurt. Verse 6. And God said to him, in the dream, I also know, with an innocent heart, you did this. For I myself have spared you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not allow you to touch her. Rashi, verse 6. Over here, the Torah tells us, yes, I know. Emes, this is true. Shalai dimisa, that you not have intention to sin with her. But to say that you have a blameless hand, ein kan you don't have. Why? Who's the one that didn't allow you to touch her? That was me. Or else maybe you would have. I did not allow. It wasn't on your own intuition that you decided you're not going to touch her. I held you back from sinning. I did not give you the ability. Therefore, we see this also in other places. God did not allow. The word means not allowing. So what does God tell him to do? Continue on to verse 7. Now, returns the man's wife, who is a prophet. He will daven for you, he will pray for you. And you will live. But if you do not return her, you will know, you will die, you and everything that belongs to you. Verse 7, now Avimelech has the obligation to return her. Not because he's a prophet, but the prophet gives you the ability that he will pray for you. Don't think that maybe she'll become disgusting by him and therefore he's not going to want to take her back. Or he's going to hate you and therefore he's not going to pray for you because of what you've done. Amarli Avimelech. Avimelech said, how are they going to know? To be. Like, why is he going to take her back? Maybe he's going to be concerned that I did touch her. How is he going to know that I didn't touch her? Amarlai, therefore, God continues in the verse and says, Ki naviyu, he is a prophet v'yedea, he knows that you didn't touch her by prophecy. Lefichach, there's no problem, you'll be able to appease him, and he'll daven because of you, he'll pray for you, and you won't get punished. Verse 8. Vayashkim Avimelech b'boker, and Avimelech got up early in the morning. Vayikra chol avadav, and he called to all the servants. Vayidaber kol hadvarim ha'ela b'azneihem, and he told them everything that he saw, that they should hear it. Vayiru anashim miyed, and they were very scared. They were terrified. Verse 9. Vayikra Avimelech la'Avram, and Avimelech called Avram Vayeira, and he told him, Ma sisalei, what have you done? Ma sisalanu, what have you done to us? Ma chatasi lecha, what sin have I done to you? Ki eveisa alai, that you were about to bring this guilt val mamlachti onto my kingdom. Chator gedola, such a great sin. Maisim, such actions. Asher leyosu, things that are not normally done. Asisa imadi, you did with me. Verse 9, Rashi. Masim asher leyosu. What is he talking about? Actions that are never been done. Maka asher lehurgel alavi al birya. A terrible plague which never usually happens to any creation, came to us because of you. What was that terrible plague? Rashi explains, Atziras kol nekavim. All his holes in his body, his whole plumbing system got clogged. Shel zera v'shel ketanim uri'i v'aznayim v'chaytim. Anything for him to go to the bathroom or for his ears and his nose, all holes in the body got clogged and were not working. Over here, Rashi, the Torah reading continues now, verse 10. Vayemer Avimelech al Avram. Avimelech asked Avram, Ki amar Mari Isa, what did you see that made you decide to say such a thing? What did you see in us that you decided to call her your sister because of this whole terrible thing happened? So Avram responds very simply. Vayemer Avram, and Avram replies, Ki amarti, because I said to myself, people here don't fear God. And therefore, if they don't fear God, they'll kill me because of my wife. If I say that she's my wife. What does it mean they don't fear God? So Rashi explains. How did he know that they don't fear God? He says, usually, achsanoi, a guest, shabali ir, that comes to a city, the normal thing is, I say. A person comes to a city, you ask him, you have a place to sleep, you have a place to eat, to drink. And they ask him right away when you come to a city, they ask him about your wife. Why did the first thing I have to ask you about is who's my wife, whom I'm related to? It must be that this was a problem. That secondly, he answers, Vegam, verse 12, in any case, she is actually my sister. Na bas avi, the daughter of my father. Achloi bas imi, but not of my mother. And therefore it was permissible for me to marry her. It wasn't considered incest. And she came to me for a wife. Now what does this mean? Bas avi, bas ir achi, as follows. And why did he have to justify himself about incest? We just learned about, and as we just read, that why did the terrible name come out on Lot, was because his daughters didn't follow the Noachide laws, which were incest. Therefore, Avram had to protect himself in saying that he did not do incest as well. Verse 12, let's see it in Rashi. Bas of Muteris Labanayach, the daughter of a father was allowed for a Noachide to marry. She'ein avis l'goy, because the nations of the world do not go by the lineage based on their father, and therefore it's not considered, just because they have the same father, is not considered that they're real relatives, and incest did not apply in such cases. However, that was not the reason why he said she is my sister, as he was afraid that they might kill him, but he wanted to show how there was truth in his words. That means, even though he already answered them, he said I said it was my sister because I was worried they might kill me, but he also wanted to show that I really didn't even lie when I told you that she's my sister. Because if you're going to say, She is the daughter of my brother, which was Haran, was Avram's brother, Hoisa. B'nei banim areim kebanim. Children, grandchildren are like children. And therefore, harehi bita shel Terach. So she's like the daughter of Terach, because she is the daughter of my brother, which then makes her the daughter of Terach, which then makes her his sister. So too, he says it to Lot. He calls Lot his brother, even though Lot was only his brother's, it was his nephew. What does it mean, not my mother? Haran was born from another mother. While Haran and Avram shared fathers, they had, which was Terach. However, from the mother's side, they did not share the same mother. So therefore, Sarah was not his sister at all. Verse 13. When God made me wander out of my parents' home, from my father's house. And I said to her, this is the kindness that you will do with me. Any place that we will come to, there, imrili, you will say for me, Achihu, he is my brother. Verse 13, Rashi, gives the Aramaic translation for whatever he did, which is at the time that the nations went after strange gods. Yeshli Ashavoid, but you can also find another simple interpretation for the meaning. Davar alefane. Each thing the way it's meant to be. What does it mean? And over here, Rashi goes on to explain what does it mean when they made me wander from my father's house. When God told me to leave my parents' home in Parshas Lech Lecha, that I should be going and traveling from place to place, from place to place. I knew that along my travels I'm going to pass by places which are not so good. We have evil people, and therefore I said to my wife Sarah, this should be the kindness that you will do, and you will say that you're my brother. Another word, kasher hisu. If you look at the word hisu, my travels, so the terminology is loshin rabim. It says it in plural. Why is that plural? Va'alti tama. Don't wonder, Rashi tells us. Ki baharbi bekomis in many places loshin elakus loshin marus kodem loshin rabim. Many places we find God is referred to as plural because it means a type of dominionship or rulership is used in a plural way. As you can see it in the book of Samuel, Asher Haruchu Elikim, Elikim Chayim, Elikim Kedoshim, Cholosh and Elikim, and also the very fact by using the terminology of God's name as Elikim is already plural, because in singular term you should say Elika. The fact that you're saying Elikim, it sounds like a plural of God. We see also Vayikach Adonai Yosef, Adonai Adonim, Adonai Aretz, Ba'alav Imav Huad with Olav. Anytime you're going to see some type of rulership or dominionship, it's going to be a terminology of plural. So too, when we use God's name as a jurisdiction or a ruler, it's going to be that plural terminology. And Rashi continues, V'im Tomer, you may ask, why does Avram say that he was wandering? Wasn't that the proper and just way for him to do? Ma'u Loshin Hisu, what does it mean that he was wandering? So Rashi explains, because anybody that's exiled from their place and is not settled in one place but has to keep on traveling, karutai is a called wanderer. As we see later on in verse 21, said she went and she wandered, as it says in Tehillim, Psalm 119, and I was wandering like a sheep, and that they go out to wander to find their food. Imruli, say for me. What does this mean? It doesn't mean say to me, a lie, about me. We see this in other places. The people asked about his wife. What does it mean? Li'ishtei, al-ishtei, about his wife. So too we find in the book of Exodus when he uses a similar terminology, Pharaoh says to the Jewish people, about the Jewish people. Next Rashi, then he says, also when we find later on, where we find in the book of Judges, maybe you will say that a woman you have killed, again, about a woman that you have killed. Verse 14. Vayikach Avimelech tzoinu vakar. And Avimelech took sheep and cattle, vavadim and slaves, ushvachis and maidservants, vayiten laVram, and he gave them to Avram, vayoshav leYisari ishtei, and returned Sarah his wife to him. Why did he give him all these gifts? So Rashi tells us, that he should appease him and he should also then pray for him that he should live and not be punished. Vayehi kasher, verse 16. Ulusara Omar, and to Sarah he said, I'm sorry, verse 15. Verse 15. Vayemer Avimelech, and Avimelech said, Hine arti lefanecha, my land is here before you. Katoiv beinecha, you may settle whatever you please. Shave, you may settle here. Rashi 15. Hine arti lefanecha. Avol Paro, you look a contrast over here between Paro and Avimelech. When Paro returned Sarah, he says, take her and go. Avimelech, on the other hand, says, stay here. Avol Paro, he was afraid to keep them there. He knew that the Egyptians were very promiscuous, and he was worried about having the problem again. Therefore, he told her, go, don't stay here. However, Avimelech was offering them to stay there. Verse 16. Ulusara Amar, and to Sarah he said, Hine nasati elef kesev lachich. I've now given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Hine hulach kesuseinayim. Let him serve you as a cover over the eyes. L'chol asher itach, for all those that are with you, ve'eskel v'nechachas, and for anyone as proof of innocence, and that's why I'm giving you this. What does this mean? So Rashi explains what's going on over here. Not only was he looking to appease Avram, but also he wanted to appease Sarah because of what she went through. Sarah Omar, so Rashi says, Avimelech said these words, in her honor, in order to appease her. Over here I'm giving you this great honor. That I'm giving money to your brother. What does it mean to your brother? The fellow shamart alav achihu, the fellow who you said is your brother. So here's the money and the honor that I gave to Avram. Lach kesuseinaim will be as a covering for the eyes. For all the people that are here and will hear about the story, they will see the money that I gave, and therefore will be a great honor for you. This will cover their eyes, meaning that you will not be embarrassed, and they will not look with embarrassment on you. Is because if I would have gave you back empty-handed, they're going to say, well, after they made this whole libel, she became disgusted by him, and therefore she left. But now that everybody sees that I gave all this money, that people will see that I'm giving you money and I'm trying to appease you and I'm trying to be cut into your good books. Yoidim, they will all know, you shall karchai, that this was against your will. And it was against my will that I took you, and against my will that I returned you, and it was all because of the miracle. Ve'eskoil, what does it mean, ve'eskoil? V'im kol boy olam, all the people that come to see you. V'neichachas, what does it mean, v'neichachas? Meaning against the people that are trying to put doubts into what's going on here. You'll have what to answer them. To debate them, be able to show them clearly these things, that showing them the money and the honor, knowing that I was forced to give you back. Anytime you talk about rebuke or in such places, is to clarify the words to show the truth. Ubilaz, and in Old French it was ashprubir. Unclis translates it in a different way. Bepanim acherim, in a different way. However, when learning the language of the pasuk, it seems to say this, and how is it explained according to the Aramaic translation al pi Targum? Hine, this is what it means. Hulach, that means he is for you. Ksushal kaved, he is there for a garment of respect. On your respect, he has to appease you. Al einaim shalisha shaltubach, meaning your husband has to appease you because he allowed my eyes to see you. And everything that's with you. That's why the Unkla says, and I saw you in everything that you have. There are plenty medrashic explanations. But as Rashi always tells us, he is here only to tell us a simple interpretation, and therefore he is sticking to the simple interpretation and not going to tell us all the extra medrashic meanings on it. Back to the Torah, verse 17. Vayispal Avram Elikim, and Avram prayed to God. Vayeira Elikim es Avimelech, and God healed Avimelech. Ves Ishtay and his wife, V'im Hoisav and his bondswoman, Vayeledu, and they were able to give birth. They relieved themselves, and the fact that what does it mean to give birth? They were able to relieve themselves. Vayeledu, and verse 18. Vayeledu, Rashi Vayeledu, what does it mean? Did they actually give birth? So Rashi explains that the word Vayeledu does not mean that they literally gave birth. Like the Targum says, Isravochu, they relieved themselves. Niftachu nikveim, as we mentioned, what was their plague? Was that all their holes got clogged? Now it was all open, and whatever had to come out, came out. That's their birth. They felt like a new person. So therefore, he uses the terminology of giving birth. Why was it so important? Because God had blocked every orifice of the members of Avimelech's family. Leveis Avimelech, to the family of Avimelech, because al dvar Sarah, because of Sarah, Ishes Avram, the wife of Avraham. Ba'ad kol rechem, what does it mean, rechem? So generally the word rechem means a womb, but Rashi says over here it's a metaphoric of keneged kol Pesach, any opening in their body. Al dvar Sarah, al pi dibura shalah, because of her words. Meaning, according to the Medrash, it explains this, what she said, that whenever they would try to come close, she would say the angel to punish them, to hit them. So this was the punishment that came because of Sarah. We are now at chapter 21. The Torah goes back to telling us, remember that a year ago, Sarah was promised that she would have a child, and right after the story of Avimelech, it tells us about not only were the people of Avimelech healed, but also Sarah gives birth to a child. Hashem pokat Sarah, and God remembered what he said to Sarah, kasher Amar, like he said, Vayaz Hashem l'Sarah, and God did to Sarah, kasher diber, like he spoke. Verse 1, Rashi tells us, what does it mean by Hashem pokat Sarah? Samach parshazu lekan. He put the story of Sarah having birth right after the story of Avimelech to teach us a very important lesson. To teach you, when you pray for your friend, and you need the same exact thing as your friend needs, the one who prays gets answered first. As it says, that Avram prayed for Avimelech, and what happens right afterwards? And right afterwards, it tells us that God remembered about Sarah. That she already was remembered by God even before Avimelech was healed. What does it mean, like he said? Like he said in the promise, that she would become pregnant. Kasher diber, then why does it say at the end of the verse, like he said again? There's kasher omar, like he spoke, and then like kasher diber, like he said. So the first one is that he said about that she'll become pregnant. Kasher diber, not only will she become pregnant, shatela, that she'll give birth beleda. Where do we find these two terminologies that he said and spoke? Amira, we find it was when God said to sorry, your wife will give birth to a child. Dibur, actually speaking, we find later on, before by the covenant that was set to Avram, where it says, Hoya Dvar Hashem al Avram was the words to Avram, but Bris ben Absarim, normally Rosh Chazeh, where God tells him Yishmael is not going to be the one, or at that point it was Eliezer, was not going to be the one to inherit you. The Hevi HaYoresh mi Sarah. And who is going to be the one you hear that's going to be coming from Sarah? Vayaz Hashem l'Sarah kasher diber, Rashi says, who did he speak to? La Avram, like he spoke to Avram. Verse 2. And Sarah became pregnant, and she conceived and gave birth to a child to Avram in his old age. Lamoyed, at that appointed time, Asher Dibrei Selikim, that God has spoken to him. What is that appointed time? And over here, Rashi brings to us an interesting debate in the Talmud. Rabbi Yudan v'Rab Chama. Rashi Lamoyed. Rabbi Yudan says, that he was born after 9 months. What does it mean? That appointed time? The appointed time of a natural birth. Why? 9 months after this, that people shouldn't say, that it came from Avimelech. And that this child, Yitzchak, was born from Avimelech. Rab Chama says, L'shiva Chadashim. He was born 7 months after pregnancy. And why does he tell us La Moyed, to that appointed time, the 7th month from Tishrei is Nisan, which is that he was born on Pesach. So La Moyed, to that holiday that he was born on Pesach. So he was remembered on Tishrei and was born on Pesach. Lizkunov, the word Lizkunov is made up of multiple words. Ziv Ikunov, Shayaziv Ikunin Shalai. He looked exactly like his father. The Yitzchak and Avram, Doimalai, they look the same. Lamoyed Asher Diber Oisai. What is Oisai? The Malal Yosai, that he spoke to him. Es Hamoyed Asher Diber V'Kavad, the day that he set and appointed that would be. Shekesha Amar, but when the angels came and they said, Lamoyed Asher Valacha, that we will come back to you. Soratli Strita Bakaisel, they made a line on the wall. Amar, and he said, look, when the sun reaches this point of the wall, Bashana Cheres, the following year, you will know that a year passed. That was, I guess, their calendar. Taled, the calendar on the fridge of the wall of Avram's tent. Taled, you'll know that that's when they will give birth. Verse 3. Vayikra Avram Shebedei Anilad, and Avram called the son that he gave birth to Yitzchak, Asher Yodele Sarah, the one that was born to Sarah, because Avram had another child, as you know. Yitzchak, Yitzchak. Verse 4. Vayomal Avram es Yitzchak b'nei ben Shmeinas Yamim, and Avram circumcised his son Isaac on the 8th day. Kasher Tziva Oisei Elikim, as God has commanded. As if you recall, Avram himself was circumcised 99. Yishmael was at 13. The first one to be circumcised at 8 days old, born into it, without even a choice, meaning that his whole life was an entity of holiness, was Yitzchak, and from him we learn that we continue to circumcise at 8 days old, giving the child the moment that he's born, giving him a fusion of holiness. This concludes the Torah reading for the 4th portion of Vayeira.